Hello, everyone. We are live. So, as always, I'm gone live via StreamYard, which means that at any point, if you would like to jump in and ask a question, I can bring it up like this, which is awesome. So, everyone can see your face and your comment. Of course, if you don't want to give StreamYard your permission to see your profile, you don't need to. It'll just give you like a little duck face like this and say user and give your question. So today we're going through all things training. I'm going to be going through a really super simple breakdown of the three different types of energy system training, as well as strength training. Now, funny, strength training is something I could break down even further into hypertrophy, into power, into strength. I'm going to give you guys a really simple breakdown of all of these things, and I'm going to then help you decide on what is best for you. So let me just say first and foremost at the very offset that there is no such thing as the best training program, because what matters is your time, your goal, and your preferences, right? There's no point me saying to you that the best thing that you can do is X when actually you hate it and you'd never do it, because the best training program is the one that you are going to do consistently and enjoy the most. There are obviously caveats into the goal that you're trying to achieve. So if you're trying to be the best runner, you won't be the best runner if you never run. And if you're trying to be the best weightlifter, you'll never be the best weightlifter if all you do is swim, right? So there are caveats to you have to do something that you're trying to get better at. But again, that comes down to what is the goal and what do you enjoy? If your goal is to lose some body fat and to build some muscle, you can do that in many, many different ways. It's finding the one that you can do consistently and that you enjoy and therefore stick to on the regular basis. But let's break this thing down. Energy system training refers to cardiovascular activity mostly, but it doesn't just need to be running, rowing, cycling, swimming, etc. It could also involve strength movements and boxing and other things done for a circuit based for a continuous movement. That's where CrossFit gained a lot of popularity, is because effectively they combined weightlifting and strength and conditioning movements into circuits for what seemed to be the first time. And they added a time based model to it, an intensity model, and packaged it up as a thing. So, the guy who founded CrossFit was a very clever guy. He took things that already existed and just packaged it in a new way and then franchised it to make an absolute killing. So, in terms of the energy systems, we have three of them. We have the alactic system, which is short power between 10 to 12 seconds. We have anaerobic lactic, which is between 60 to 90 seconds of work. And then anything longer than that is technically aerobic. And the aerobic system is always running as a backup behind the scenes. So anything longer than 90 seconds could technically be aerobic power, but if you were to go super hard, let's say on something that was 3 to 5 minutes long, you could say it was anaerobic, but that's just because the intensity is super high. You're actually only using the anaerobic system for the first minute and a half, roughly, and then everything else is still going to be done via aerobic mechanisms. And this is what's really key, in that the aerobic energy system is one of the most important systems that you can develop that will improve every area of your performance in other aspects. So, aerobic energy system is super vital. It's the long and slow, but can be trained with intervals, which is what's really interesting. So, if you were to do 2 minutes on and 2 minutes off, funnily enough, this might be someone's classification of HIIT, high intensity interval training, but it's not. It is aerobic interval training, because there's absolutely zero chance you can go hard enough in 2 minutes to fully recover in 2 minutes. What you would find is that if you go too hard within a 2 minute window and try to recover within 2 minutes, your next 2 minute window is slower, then your next 2 minute window is slower, and your next 2 minute window is slower. And all you're training your body to do then is to suffer. Where really, when you're trying to get as good as possible at energy systems, you want to get good at repeatable efforts. So whenever you do an interval, if you want it to train the aerobic system, your best bet excuse me, is having as much rest or less rest than your working set. So 2 minutes on, 2 minutes off, 1 minute on, 1 minute off. You could even do 5 minutes on, 5 minutes off. And the goal is to go at roughly 80% effort so that you can repeat the energy effort every time, whether that's rowing, sparring, running, cycling, swimming, what have you. That should be the goal. Okay. Another way to train your aerobic system is to just do long, slow efforts. Excuse me, this would be aerobic capacity work. Now, each energy system, aerobic energy system, alactic and anaerobic lactic, have loads of different ways to train them. That's not what this live is about. I can do another one of those if people have enough, if there's enough scope for it, if people have enough interest. This is just breakdown of those. So you can do aerobic capacity work, which is long and slow, keeping your heart rate around zone 2, zone 3 for an extended period of time. And that was what I'd recommend for many of you as well. If you're serious about getting better at energy system training, get yourself a heart rate monitor and use the data so you know what zone you're in, and therefore you're attacking the right energy system at that time. Okay. So that's the aerobic energy system. Alactic, 10 to 12 seconds, anaerobic lactic, 60 to 90 seconds. Anything that's anaerobic, both of those are anaerobic, right? So there's anaerobic alactic and anaerobic lactic. Anaerobic basically stands for unsustainable. And anything that's unsustainable means that when you train it, you should have much more rest than you have working periods so that you can repeat the effort. If you're doing a 10-second sprint, you want at least 2 minutes rest so that you can repeat that effort. Now, that sounds like a lot. And when I have clients do energy system training, a lot of the time they're like, I felt like I was resting for too long. That is just the body's inability to produce the power at that time domain because they're used to suffering, right? They're used to just doing 2 minutes as hard as they can, 2 minutes off, trying again, and just suffering, getting worse and worse on that rower, right? If you do a 10-second sprint and get 2 minutes rest, you want that 10-second sprint to absolutely suck. You want it to drain your soul of all enjoyment so that you can repeat that effort at a very, very high intensity, because otherwise it's not doing anything for you. Okay, so anything anaerobic, you want a lot more rest in order to repeat that effort. And the longer the work period goes on, the shorter the rest can be in comparison. So if you did a minute hard effort, you'd probably have 5 to 6 minutes rest versus, so that's 5 to 6 times the rest versus 10-second effort, you've got 12 times rest. Now, in terms of work efforts and rest periods, I've got a mini breakdown sheet of this, which I'm happy to provide for you. Just let me know in a message if this has struck a chord with you and if this is super useful for you. Now, in terms of heading towards your goals, as I mentioned, the main thing is what you can do consistently. If your goal is to build some muscle, then strength training is vital. Cycling and swimming can have some good effects. Cycling on the legs, of course, and swimming upper body, because you are using your body against resistance, but just in a cardiovascular fashion. So they're not going to be ideal on their own, but they will have good results. Similar things with like climbing and stuff. You're using your body against resistance quite a lot, but strength training efforts will help those. Now, in terms of a strength training regime, CrossFit exists, but CrossFit isn't the most ideal manner for building strength depending on the program. Oftentimes, you're not doing enough actual bodybuilding and weightlifting within an hour session. You're mostly doing metabolic conditioning. So, if anyone does CrossFit classes, which I have recently returned to, my advice is to do 2 to 3 sessions of bodybuilding/strength training a week alongside your classes, or at least doing 30 to 45 minutes of accessory work alongside a class so that you can get enough volume of actual strength training in to make a difference. If your goal is to look better, feel better, build muscle, weight training is necessary. How you do that is up to you, whether that's bodybuilding programming, powerlifting, Olympic weightlifting, CrossFit, or something else. But in terms of high intensity interval training classes, I honestly don't think there's much utility in them apart from getting a sweat, although you are working your aerobic system, right? So if you do a Barry's boot camp or a hit session, you're usually doing intervals. That's fine. It's going to be aerobic though, it's not high intensity. So you're best getting a heart rate monitor, monitoring your results and sticking within a certain zone so that you know you're working on your aerobic metabolism and your aerobic conditioning. Even if you're doing weights within those sessions, it's an aerobic conditioning session, it's not a strength training session. A strength training session means that you do a certain amount of sets and reps, and then you break it down and you have rest, and you do that for a rough guide is 10 to 20 sets per muscle group per week. So you could break that down into 3 full body sessions a week where you do a push, a pull, a squat, and a hinge, or you just do some uppers and lowers in one session. So one session you could do push and hinge, another session you could do squat and pull. You get the drift. Okay. So breaking that into those sessions is up to you. You could do uppers and lowers. So one session is uppers, one session is lowers. And you could even do body part splits 5 days a week if you wanted to train like a bodybuilder. So there's no best there. The time, it's into your time that you have available and your goals. Now, this is a very brief overview of it all, but if you want some extra help with these, I do have a connection to the muscle and strength pyramids. So one is a nutrition guide and one is a strength guide. You can buy them separately or together as an absolute bundle. And again, if you want that, let me know below, because that will go into what we've spoken about on this live in much, much greater detail. And if this is of interest to you guys, what I'll do is do a follow-up video, a follow-up live, breaking down the energy system training into certain blocks. And I can then even break down strength training into different blocks. And we can go for like 20 to 30 minutes at a time and really, really deeply go through that. So let me know in the comments or let me know via a DM whether that's useful for you, and I'll make it happen. But thank you for coming to today's live. I hope that you found that useful. Drop me some feedback below, and we'll talk again next week.